Tutors, mentors, and the city with your host.com.
The City Tutors presents
Tutors, mentors, and the city
with your host.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Kevin.com Brown, and welcome to Tutors, Mentors, and the City. And we're going to jump in like we do every episode. Please join me in welcoming our guest, Mr. K-Bell Brown. Hey, K-Bell, welcome to the show.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, just to share space with you and just be on this podcast. I feel like we're kin because we have the same last name, but you just never know these days. You know, I got to ask you where your family's from. My folks are from Emporia, Virginia. So if your folks are from there, we might have to do some digging.
Well, you know what? My family, my parents are from South Carolina, Hemingway, South Carolina, but they did, venture that way. They did venture through Virginia and Baltimore and DC and the whole 9 yards. So we could be related. I've gone to my daughter. I have a 28-year-old daughter. Yeah. And I have this theory that it's important to take your kids to the family reunions so the next generations can meet each other, right?
Right.
Because the last thing you want is your kids to go off to college and meet someone who is just like them and they fall in love and then they find out they're cousins. That's
we never want that.
That's the biggest nightmare ever. So I made it my duty to start taking my daughters to the family reunions and let them meet my side of the family, because they typically grow up meeting the mom side and never meet the father side. But all that stuff is important.
Very much so.
Yeah, but that being said, I'm gonna change my first question for you.
Wow, okay.
All right. My first question is usually, who are you?
I love that.
I'm gonna change it now.
Yeah.
Because you look so young, and because you were presented to me as a guest, you had to have accomplished something. So I'm changing the question to, as young as you look, what did you do to make the executive director invite you to be a guest on this show? You had to have done something incredible.
Yeah. Oh, man. One big shout out to Gary, because he's amazing. I feel like Gary and I have just developed a great relationship over some time. And I'm thankful for all the work that he does and the work that y'all do at City Tutors. And for the record, I'm 28, which is, I got a little seasoning on me, you know what I'm saying? A little dab with the salt, you know.
You're the age of my daughter. My daughter's the same age as you, my oldest daughter.
Right. When you said that, I was like, oh, wow. So he gets like the mind state that someone my age is kind of in for the most part.
But you don't even look that old. You don't even look that old.
I usually get like 20, maybe 21. Right. I'll put on a hoodie, and I have a hoodie on right now, but if I have a hoodie on and sneakers, like it's high school sometimes. Yeah. It's a blessing, because when I'm 40, I'm gonna be a whole snack. So
Oh yeah. Absolutely. So that being said, what did I do? I tell people this all the time, like where I am now and just the journey I've been on is just a full-on testimony. I can't really talk about my career journey without talking about my faith. They go hand in hand. And, as a Christian, I'm like, it's all Jesus and none of me, honestly. For me to find myself, in these positions, in these spaces, my 18-year-old self could never dream of, I've seen things that I never thought I would, first things in my family that I never thought my family would see. And, I've been in the corporate social responsibility space. For those who don't know, corporate social responsibility is basically how a corporation does social good, how to help nonprofits attach themselves to social causes, really try to help people in the world. And I've been fortunate and blessed enough to do that at 3 different places. I started out my career at HBO doing work there. Then I transitioned to Paramount, aka Viacom CBS. They're the parent company behind Paramount Plus, for those who don't know. And then now I work at LinkedIn doing social impact there as well. And man, it's been a faith journey, honestly, the whole time. Just, I think, having a passion to help people and serve people, and also feeling the call of God in my life to say, hey, like, I want you to serve the community in this way. And I'm going to open that door because, at HBO, I was one of 12 out of 2,500. At Paramount, I was one of 5 out of 30,000. At LinkedIn here, I'm one of 23 out of 19,000 globally. And the truth be told, the matter is, like, these roles are too few and far between that I think people can meritocratically move their ways into them. And I think we're all just blessed to be here and to be able to do this work every day. And I think the way Gary got me on the call is, I think there was a really personal connection where I was born and raised in Queens. I'm a native to New York City. And I grew up across the street from Queens College, which is the public housing development called Palm Knock Houses. I've been there since the age of 4 until I moved out to go to college. And when Gary approached me about City Tutors and what they did and all the things, I was like, I gotta support this. I'm like, he went to Queens College. He knows where I'm from. Like, I know what it means to support CUNY students, and just being a native New Yorker and people not knowing that there's a big divide that happens with that and what it means to grow up as a native New Yorker, especially from a certain income level, and what the normal demographic of a native New Yorker kind of looks like. And, I just kind of partnered with him and to support his organization as best as I could. But I think up until that time, my professional life has just been trying to do the best work that I can to radically shift how we support communities with corporate dollars and resources. And that's the best that I can say it.
Okay, so what made you, the first place you named was HBO?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did you get connected? What made you think that was
fun? I mean, I literally can't make this stuff up. I was telling this story literally yesterday because I tell it all the time. For me, like I said, I'm a Christian Black man, first generation college student, grew up in a single parent home, grew up in public housing. And I think for me, I went to Syracuse University. I studied information management technology. I was interning at JP Morgan at the time throughout my whole college career. And I think there was a point in time where I always asked the question of, like, why is K-Bell able to show up in these white elite spaces, but my community and my family's not able to, right? And at one point I was working at Wall Street, going from the projects to Wall Street on the R train, getting off at Water Street. And, I said to myself, I just don't want to chase the bag that I never had. But how do I live a life of legacy? And I learned about corporate social responsibility in college because I talked to a woman named Christina Faulkner, never forget her name. And she asked me a couple of value-based questions. And I tell this to college students all the time. What's your relationship to money? Is it a motivator and influencer? How do you care about your time? What about, your proximity to your family? And what's that one thing that you want to reverberate throughout every role that you ever have? And I said, that's helping people. So learned about CSR. Fast forward, I'm in Times Square. This is January of 2016, I want to say. I'm in Times Square, February maybe. And my girlfriend at the time, or at Carmine's in Times Square, having our anniversary dinner. She wants to go to this screening at HBO. Never been there before, never knew HBO had their headquarters in New York City, kid from Queens, right? And we go to their support. HBO is a theater. At that point in time, they had a theater in their building, and they host screenings for nonprofits all the time. And we open the event, and down the escalator comes, not the escalator, but down to the podium comes a woman named Mary Johnson. And she says, hey, I'm part of the corporate social responsibility team here at HBO, and I'm happy to support this event, so on and so forth. And I just learned about CSR literally a month before. So fast forward, the screening ends, my girlfriend at the time, she's networking. I'm, sweating bullets because I want to talk to Mary. And Mary doesn't move, like, at all. Like, if Mary could feel the heat from my stare, she'd probably melt. But I just mustered up the courage and to share my heart with Mary. And I said, hey, I know you don't know me. I know that, we have no rapport. And I know it's a little bit awkward, but, my name is K-Bell. I really want to learn about what you do. I learned about CSR in college. And she told me about what she did. And mind you, I never knew that she had an internship in the wait. But we exchanged emails, and she said, I think you'd be great to my internship program. Interviews later, which I had the worst interviews of my life. I ended up interning there. And it's even a crazier story how I got there full time. But that's how it all happened.
Okay. You opened the door. What's that crazier story?
Oh, wow. I mean, it gets even crazier. I ended up working for a man named Dennis Williams, who's, near and dear to my heart. I love Dennis so much. He showed up for me in ways I never knew I needed. And I'll say this: there's one, because people talk about sponsorship and mentorship, but it's another role to have a coverer, right? To have someone to say, "Hey, that you." Because I wasn't the best assistant ever. I ended up being his assistant, and I wasn't the best assistant ever. I did okay. I did pretty okay. I wasn't like fire worthy, but it wasn't my strong suit. And there were times I messed up for sure. And it was my first job out of school. And for Dennis to say, hey, like for someone to give you the grace to make mistakes and still advocate for you, that's a different level of support, right? So I just want to give him honor. But to fast forward, I interned there, and as an intern, Dennis was a VP at the time. I barely ever interacted with him. I had coffee with him maybe twice, sat in team meetings, all these things. But he's a VP, I'm an intern, right? Top of the chain, the bottom of the chain. And I ended up telling them like, hey, I want to work here, and they're like, hey, we don't have headcount. So at that point in time, his assistant, who actually went to Syracuse with me, was like, hey, I'm not going to be assistant anymore. This is September after the internship is over. And she sends me an email, and I'm like, hey, I would love to put my name in the hat. Don't know where that goes. Fast forward to Black Friday of 2016. I'm in DC, ironically now, and where we're having this conversation. And I'm at the African Museum of History and Culture. And it just opened at that time. Super hard to get tickets. Half my family's there. And around the corner comes Dennis. And I'm like, that's Dennis. Oh my God. Right. So he daps up my family. He's having all, joking around, all these things. And he posts me to the side. He's like, "Hey, on my calendar in December, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And I'm looking forward to our conversation. He says, "Okay, so you're going to come work for me or what?" Gives me the job on the spot, verbatim. Right. And my crazy stuff, I said, "Dennis, I would love to take that offer, but I'm still trying to figure out my life. I'm a college student. I'm 22. I don't know what I'm doing." And fast forward, I then meet with him, and I take a bus down from Syracuse, 5 hours. I'm suited. I don't know it's an interview or not. And I get down there and to his office, and hold on one second. Close it. I get down to his office, and he says, "Kayvel, the job is yours. Let's just talk. Can't make this up." And I remember talking to him, and I said to him, "Dennis, I really want to work in a nonprofit space. I want to be with people. I really want to show up for people, want to love on them. And I feel like CSR is broad strokes. You have a lot of great impact, but you don't really see your end-to-end impact." And he says, "Kayvel, can't make this up." He says, "You can either be Malcolm or you can be Barack. They both had amazing impact. They just did it differently." And there's more to that story there, but that's how it all happened. And then he's like, "But I need till Tuesday," right? I probably talked to him like maybe on a Wednesday or a Monday, but God just kind of opened the door where I said, "I'm gonna say yes," and that started my journey.
Tremendous story. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Let's rewind now. Yeah. You said you from Queens.
Yeah.
Public school, private school.
So both. So I went through to PSI 499, which is right in Queens College, where I grew up across the street. It was a public school. I was the first class to graduate. So I remember being in trailers because we didn't even have a building until I went to 5th grade. Interesting experiment of a school. Great school. I loved it. And then I was fortunate enough to participate in a program called Student Sponsorship Partners, which is a nonprofit organization that helps low-income, diverse inner city kids in New York City go to Catholic school or private school. So I actually got into SSP, and I got a sponsor to go to Holy Cross High School in Flushing, Queens. So combination of both.
Okay. And did you say you were the only child?
No. So I have a twin brother.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah, he went to Howard.
The two of you?
So I actually have just me and my brother from both my mom and my dad, but I have 3 half siblings, two older ones, and then 1 younger brother. So there's 5 of us total.
How heavy were they in your life?
I mean, I think when your parents, split at, my parents divorced around the age of 2. So when you grow up in a family dynamic in that way, there's different dynamics there, right? Where you build relationship over time. You necessarily don't see each other, super frequently, but, all my siblings today, we're now closer because we're older, and don't have to kind of go through those different dynamics.
So you and your twin.
Mhm.
Same path, like twin paths, or different paths?
That's him. He's here, so that's him.
Wait a minute, what just happened? The timing was perfect. The timing was
the time was
perfect.
perfect. Time was perfect. I'm in his room right now. But yes, I mean, I think similar paths. I mean, very, very similar paths. I mean, we both went into college as engineering majors. So I started off as a civil engineering major. My brother started off as a chemical engineering major. And I think we chose that major, because we grew up working poor, right? Like, my mom was just trying to, it's not to undignify our lives, but that's just was the reality, Um, and I think when you grow up that way, you subconsciously choose things that are going to be financially insecure. You kind of don't have the luxury to say, hey, I'm going to pursue the fine arts, or I'm going to pursue media or whatever. And we were both good at math and science. So we said, I'm going to be engineers. And but ironically enough, same path, we got academics suspended at the same time. And I tell the story to give encouragement that students are not their GPAs, that they have this grace on their lives, that definitely be academically responsible, but you're not condemned for the mistakes that you made as a 19-year-old or 20-year-old, and that your life isn't over. And that's okay, that you're redeemable, and that the redemption is in front of you. Yeah, we both got academically suspended at the same time with my mom, and she broke my heart. I was condemned. And God made a way where we both got reinstated. My brother even has a crazier testimony being at Howard. And we both ended up changing our majors. So I ended up switching major twice. I got to system information science, which is half IT, half comp sci, of two different things. Then I hated to coding till 3 a.m. in the morning. And I just dropped the coding part of my major. I just became an information management technology major. My brother, on the other hand, switched all the way over to human development. And like, how do I show up and love on people and systems and think about how they develop? But he ultimately ended up being a campus missionary, which means that he helps college students think through their life and world through a biblical worldview and helps them follow Jesus. So we both have impactful jobs trying to help people, but it's in different ways.
Outstanding. My daughter graduated from Howard University also.
Hey, H2, you already know.
Yeah. And her mother worked there for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
She was a radio personality, as a matter of fact. Howard University has a commercial radio station.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, she did the show called Cafe 96 for 20 years out of Howard.
Yeah.
So it is a small world, We might keep talking and find out we are related. We are cousins, right?
Who knows? I mean, hey, that the diaspora is something great, something else.
Yeah. So what does that look like? You're at Syracuse. He's at Howard.
Yeah.
And you both get that letter.
Yeah.
So how do y'all tell mom?
How do we tell mom? We avoid, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I think the toughest part about the education system as it stands right now is that it's very punitive, to the point that if one doesn't do the perfect thing up until that point, if you don't get all the A's, you don't do all the projects, you don't have them as much discipline as you need or support that you need, it's just like, it's all on you. I mean, because it is the most meritocratic version that we have in the United States, right? Like, it's like you get in what you put in, right? It's a very simple equation for the most part. And that crushes you because you're the one who didn't study. You were the one who didn't do the homework. You were the one who didn't go to class, whatever it was. And we both had to sit ourselves in the mirror and say, like, I caused this, which is a very condemning position to be in, because there's no blame. You can't shift the blame to anything but yourself. And you know that you're responsible for your own failure, and it's hard to get out of. And when you have to tell your mom, who sacrificed so much and said, hey, you're not going to live the life that I live. And even though we live in the projects, y'all not, this is going to be your ticket out. And you get to this pinnacle of what your life is supposed to be, and it gets pulled out the rug from under, your identity shatters. Because your whole thing was, I got to succeed to get out. In order to get out, I got to go to college. And now this thing is taken from you. And you squandered it, right? And you start to reevaluate, what is my relationship to success? What is my relationship to achievement? How do I think about my life? How do I pick up the pieces? And you're significantly humbled at that point. And we both kind of had to face to sit in the mirror and say, hey, mom, like this happened. I didn't show up. I was irresponsible. I wasn't diligent. I squandered my opportunity. I wasn't responsible as a man to handle this. And just kind of come humbly. And I mean, I think that's where God shows up, you know, and really the grace that was on our lives to say, hey, we got reinstated. We filed appeals. My brother even thought to transfer to Syracuse. He got into Syracuse, but he said, no, I'm going to go on a college campus and plead the financial aid director. He ended up working for him. It was he would have to tell a story. Like it literally doesn't even make sense. But then you shift, you know, and you say, you know, my failures have consequences, or my irresponsibility has consequences, but I'm not them. That my life is not defined by this moment. And the path may look different, but I learned from them and I just try to do better, take it day by day, and that I'm going to be okay.
Well, I tell you, so many similarities. My daughter, her mother worked at Howard, so she could have gone for free, but she chose to go to Virginia Commonwealth University because she went there on a visit and Barack Obama was speaking.
Oh, that's a cheat code, man.
That was a cheat code. Absolutely.
Not even fair.
She didn't want to go anywhere else after seeing Barack speak on that campus. And she academic probation, had to go to a community college and get her grades up. And then she ended up going to Howard. So she didn't want to go because she's from Bowie. So she was around Howard. Okay. So, you know, the local kids, they have this view of Howard. It's a party school or whatever. Right. But it's a prestigious, you know, the alumni list is amazing.
Yeah.
But she had her local visits. I mean, her local views. And I was like, you know, if you were my son, little girl, I would have told you, boy, you better shut up and go to that school your mom works at to get that free education.
100%.
But I was trying to be delicate with her. You know, you got to be delicate with your girls and whatever. But I regret it. I regret it now. I told her a week ago that I wish I had talked to her like I would have talked to my son. I wish I had just said, girl, what are you, crazy?
Yeah.
If you want to go to another school, you pay for it. That's what I should have told her. But all that being said, so she goes to Howard and then she thrives and she makes the dean's list and she does whatever. But she had to go through those obstacles, those hurdles. Now I brought the story up to say, did with you and your brother, did any of y'all have to go to a community college, anything like that, or just writing letters and protests and put in the work?
Yeah, I mean, we got blessed enough, man. We just appealed, man, and so I think the Lord was in those rooms and said, "Hey, like, we'll let you back in." And I think, you know, the on my end is a review board. But on the other end, like literally, I mean, I literally can't make this stuff up. My brother says I'm literally gonna follow faith and I'm gonna go on God's will and I'm gonna just go to campus early and I'm gonna walk to campus to figure out what God does. I can't make this up, Kevin. I can't make this up. My brother goes and he sees and he tells the story way better than I do. And he goes and sees the director of financial aid, literally randomly on campus, early in the middle of the summer. And he goes up to him and says, "Hey, like, I found you and I need help." He ends up going into his office and the director of financial aid just hears my brother's story. And my brother's just humble. He's like, he doesn't say like, I'm gonna do better. Like he'll say he's obviously gonna do better, but he's like, he just admits his failures. He says like, I squandered this. I lost my scholarship. I need help. I don't want to leave Howard. I love it here. Please. And just really at the mercy of the director of financial aid. And the director says, I'll help you. Gives him a job, becomes his assistant, pays his tuition. It's crazy. And for me, like, I emailed the dean of the students because she was one of my professors. And I was like, hey, Dr. Hosnick, I'll never forget her name. And I was like, I really want to stay here. I know I messed up. And like I said, there was grace on both of us where we didn't have to go to community college. I contemplated it too, for sure. Because that letter said like, you got to take a year off or whatever, how many times it was. So that was definitely on the table. But that appeal process, we have favor in both of them.
Well, I tell you, that's what the story you're sharing is the reason for these interviews, right? Anybody that Googles me knows on paper I'm a celebrity. I'm pseudo celebrity, and I'm interviewing folks who think they're common folk. But this is the best level of mentorship, right? To be able to be the living participant of the advice you give, right? The living beneficiary, the real life beneficiary of practicing what you preach. And the average person, because it's clear, just talking to you for these few minutes, that advisor who compared you to in a statement, he said you could be Malcolm X or Barack Obama. He went to the very top of the food chain in the history of African American history in this country.
Right.
But he used those examples to speak to you. It's clear that you have an extremely bright future. It's clear you and your brother have extremely bright futures. You have favor.
Thank you.
But the person might see you in that position and think it was a smooth path for you, right? They'll just assume that, he probably grew up in wealthy family and it's, and this and that and no obstacles, no hurdles. There's no way his life could have been as hard as mine is. That's what a young person will easily think.
Right.
So one of the benefits of doing these interviews is to get the story from guys like you, right? The things you're sharing is like incredible. Now I'm gonna pivot again to something else you said. So where did your deep faith come from? What happened? What brought you there?
Man, this is a testimony Sunday today, but really Monday. Yeah, I mean, I think that as an African American or Black American, whatever term, I like Black American, but as a Black American, we all grew up, like a lot of us grew up culturally Christian. Maybe if you're in Philly, you might be a Black Muslim, but that's a whole other conversation. Selling bean pies and bow ties. But we grew up culturally Christian because it's part of, in very harmful ways, it's very part of the colonizing process of our people. But not to a detriment per se, but, you kind of grow up going to church on Sunday. If someone says, God is good, and they wait, everyone say all the time, because we just because we know, right? Like, or something like, amen, somebody, these are just a part of it, right? And I think on my dad's side, a lot of my dad's family's from the South. My grandmother's from Port Virginia, so she grew up as she's actually a deaconess in the Kojic church, right? So, but on my mom's side, my grandmother's Black as well, but she grew up Catholic, which is kind of like bizarre to me because like most Black people are not Catholic unless you're from Louisiana, which is a whole nother conversation. But, I think growing up culturally Christian, the difference between growing up culturally Christian and kind of like owning your faith for yourself is say like, do I believe in this my own, or is this the faith of my family? And really family is such an integral part of this process where my sister, my oldest sister, her name's Latavia, she would go to this church in Queens. Man, we're deep in Queens. Like we ride Queens till I die. Island Amy, which is in St. Albans. And my brother would go. And I wasn't at that time, this is high school. So I wasn't really with the Jesus stuff at that time. And my brother got saved before he went to Howard. They praised God because Lord knows what he would have done if he didn't. And, I remember being in college and I remember saying to myself, I want to be a man of faith, community, and family. That's what I want my manhood to stand on. That's the man I want to be. And I remember being in college and I, just really not living the life I thought I would be, very irresponsible, selfish, and, kind of going with the flow, didn't have any moral convictions as much as I thought I would. And I realized, I sat back and said that I'm not the man who I thought I would be when I said to myself at 18, maybe I was 20 at the time, 21. And I remember talking to my brother and I'm seeing my twin brother, who I know from my identical twin brother, like literally the closest person to me in my life, radically change and become a different person. And I said, what is up with this God that has changed this man that's close to me in my life? And I think the most important thing was, that peer-to-peer discipleship where my brother and I would have conversations about faith. And I said, Caleb, his name is Ronell. And I was like, Ronell, like, do you really pray to Jesus? Like, what's up? And he was like, yeah, man. And we would have these difficult conversations of like, what about suffering? What about poverty? What about, does God really show up? How does he call us to live? All these types of things. And over time, he would just counsel me and we just have these conversations. And I remember the pivotal question I asked, I was like, bro, I don't have that faith, man. I can't muster it up. And he said, bro, blew my mind when he said this. He said, bro, you can pray for the faith that you don't have. And I was like, man, that's as simple as it gets. Simple as it gets. And I remember I was telling him about some relational issues that I was having. And my brother just called me out of my sin and said, hey, like, God doesn't call you to a lifestyle, bro. Like, he calls you to repent. And I literally got off that phone and I just started to weep. Because I just started to weep and I just saw God just show up through my whole life. And I got off that phone. I just stopped crying. I said, Lord, I'm going to live for you for the rest of my life. And that was the day I got saved.
Wow. And how old were you?
I was 21.
Wow. And your brother a couple of years earlier?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a story of, well, we were kids and we go to church every Sunday at 4 years old and
Nope.
Sunday school. It wasn't that story.
Not at all. Not at all. We were Christmas, Easter, New Year's Christians. That's how I grew up.
That is tremendous, man. Holy cow. So when you and your brother went to separate colleges, was that the first time you guys were apart?
No, we went to school K through 8. And then high school, my brother got into Brooklyn Tech. Really good school. Really good school, really blessed to go there. And then I did not, because specialized tests were not my strong suit. And I ended up going to Holy Cross. So we went to different high schools. We wanted to go to the same college, but again, the standardized tests, my brother had 100 more points on the SAT scores than I did. And he got a full ride to Howard, but I got into Howard, but I didn't get the full ride. So that ended me going to Syracuse.
Man, I went to Brooklyn Tech.
See, y'all alumni place doesn't even make sense.
We keep talking.
Y'all not a high school. You're a college.
If we keep talking, man, we're going to find out. We're going to find out we are family if we keep talking.
I know. Just gotta ask the right question. That's really it. I'm like, who's your grandmother?
There's a bunch of Browns, right? Let me tell you. So South Carolina, there's this road called Brown. I think the road is called Brown's Road or Brown's Place or something.
Right.
And going down the road, everybody that lives on that road, last name is Brown. And everybody's my cousin. Everybody, the whole block, the whole road.
Wow.
And it was because my mother and my father are from the same community, and they met in New York. They met in New York during the Great Migration.
Yeah.
But and my father was a military guy, and my mother was beautiful. She was type of chick when she get on the bus, go back home, all the guys would line up waiting to greet her.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of Browns. There's a lot of Browns, man. So Browns. If we look, we're probably gonna find out that your mom is my cousin or something like that, or her mother and my mother went. We'll probably find that out. We'll probably find that out if we really kept talking. But I'll tell you what, I went back to college recently. I'm a master's candidate in college. I dropped out years ago.
Yeah.
Went back, got my degree 6 months ago.
Wow. Congrats.
Thank you. But and I plan on going for my PhD. Now, this is all new. This is all brand new to me, right?
Wow.
All brand new desires, all brand new motivation. But I say that because I'm preparing myself, because I've lost faith in our leaders, right? I've lost faith in our leadership. And I feel like they somehow, the best and the brightest of us are being plucked plucked out of commission, right? For what one way or another, being eliminated from the process. And I said to myself that, sometimes you look around and the people who are supposed to be doing the job aren't doing it. And somebody's got to do it. So it ends up being you. You step up and you say, all right, I'll do it. But then you check your qualifications. So I've been sort of looking around at our leadership saying, nobody's stepping up to the plate. They took Dr. King from us. They took Malcolm X from us. They take our greatest leaders.
Yeah.
And nobody's stepping up to the plate. And if I was called to step up, I'm not qualified. Right. I have the heart. I have the compunction, but I don't have the particular set of skills, as they say in the movie Taken, as Liam Neeson says, right? So I'm training myself, getting myself that particular set of skills. If, as a last resort, I'm tapped on the shoulder, Kev, you got to step up and handle this, right?
Right.
But I will tell you this, in talking to you and hearing your story and hearing your brother's story, you made my eyes water a little bit, right? Made my eyes water a little bit because you've given me faith, right? You've given me faith. You're not ready yet, and you know it, and that's what's great about you. But you can be ready, and I can feel it. Like meeting you through the Zoom call is giving me chills because you've made me feel like in this few minutes that we've been speaking that it's not hopeless. And it's not there's some of us, there's some young soldiers out there that will be prepared to pick up the mantle, to pick up the flag and carry it forward. Because I know even by the time I finish preparing myself, I'm not in the first quarter of my life. I'm in the, I'm in the third quarter.
Yeah.
So when I actually get ready, I can only rock and roll. I'm going to be dope. I'm going to be great.
Yeah, already.
But it's limited. It'll have an expiration date.
Yeah.
But meeting you and speaking to you and hearing your story and your faith and your belief and how well, crafted your aspirations are is really impressive to me. It's really inspiring to me. You may, like I said, there was a moment you were talking and my eyes watered just a little bit. Now I'm gonna tell you only a little bit because I thank Gary because he introduced me to the people like yourself from his ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I did an interview with a guy named Alan Hershkowitz.
Okay.
OG, PhD, who got his PhD in 1978 in economic engineering or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's now, he speaks all over the country. He's the environmental engineering. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. There you go. He's
the advisor for the NBA, environmental consultant for the NBA and world-class soccer. So he's at the top of the food chain. I'm speaking to this gentleman and he started saying some words and I started crying, like bawling, because the words he was saying was like he was patching up a hole in my soul that I didn't even know was empty. So he made me full scale cry. You made my eyes water a little bit. You made my eyes water a little bit, but you represent so much, man. You represent I'm pleased to have met you. I'm pleased to
likewise, man.
To have this time. And hopefully, something will happen and we'll circle around and we'll dig in to see if there's that brown thing is bloodline.
Right.
But now I said all that to say this. So you mentioned someone who you mentioned a couple of names that helped you. I guess we can call those mentors.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten from a mentor?
Wow. There's a lot of advice, man. I'm trying to think.
Now I know what you said about your brother. You can pray for it now, but that's your brother. That's that's your twin.
Yeah.
So he's you.
Yeah.
Right. But a person whose last name wasn't Brown.
Yeah. I think that some of the best piece of advice that I've ever gotten is know what you're willing to say yes to and know what you're willing to say no to. And basing that off of your values. And I know that's like not novel, but when you really say like, who am I? What do I care about? What am I willing to be led by? It really starts to allow you to maneuver this thing called life in a way where you may experience those up and those downs, but at least you can know that you're doing it with purpose and direction. And you can step out on faith in different ways because you say, hey, like, I know what I'm here for. I know what I'm trying to do. And once you say that, because if you do everything by calculus, by like risk analysis and say, hey, like this opportunity or this moment or the way that I'm showing up in this conversation is what's the risk reward of this? That's too fickle. It's too fickle. You need a set of values and principles that say, I know what I'm about. I know what I care about. I know what I'm being led by. I'm going to make decisions from that place and more of a proactive stance on my rather than a reactionary one. And that has allowed me to really try to maneuver things the best way that I can. And it gives me peace with every situation where I say, God, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? And that's what I'm being led by. And, you know, it might not make sense to the outside world. It might not make sense to from a calculated standpoint or from a risk assessment standpoint, but I'll be like, you know what? Like, this is where I'm at, you know? Because otherwise you always be reacting to the tides that are in front of you and never from the space that's in yourself or the things that's leading you.
Wow. Okay. So I have two questions. Well, three closing questions.
Yeah.
One is, what's the best advice you have to offer? I usually say to some elder, some OG, what's the best advice you have to offer to your 19-year-old self, right? Yeah. But for you, that was a couple of weeks ago, right? So, but what's the best advice you have to offer to your peers, to young people?
To young people. I feel like my answer to this has changed as I've gotten older. I'll speak specifically to, I think it's part of my story. Like, you're not your first job. You're not your GPA. And you're not your failures or your achievements. Find out, do the work to figure out what your identity is. And your identity is where you get your value from. Starting there, because I mean, granted, this, especially City 2's working in schools and colleges with college students, stuff like that stuff is important for sure. Like the skills and the career paths and degrees and the you know, the job locations, the internships, all those things are important. But you really want to come from a place of, what am I rooted in? Who am I outside of this position or this title as student at Baruch College? Who am I outside of this intern at Capital One Bank? Because once I was listening to, his name is Tim Ross, he's one pastor I listened to. He said, no one can escape the pillow. When you lay down at night and all the things in the world kind of subscribe, your text messages, the DMs, the work, the relationships, it's just you and the pillow. No one can escape that. So when you do, as a student, when you do that work to say, hey, like, who am I? Where do I get my identity from? And what do I want to rest my identity in? That's huge.
Now, this is a question that was triggered just from meeting you. If my daughter brought you home and I met you, I would say, that dude ain't real. He's not real. There's no way he could be that. No way he could be that. Are you for real? Are you a real person, or are you a caricature that you created to maneuver through this world?
Yeah. That's real. I am. I mean, I try to be as best as I can. My prayer a lot of times every day is, Lord, help me close the gap between who I am now and who you call me to be. That's really it. I'm a flawed man who made a lot of mistakes and continue to make a lot of mistakes, and I need help. And to go full preacher, I'm a sinner who needs saved by the grace, by the blood. That's it. And let's try to take it a day at a time.
Well, I tell you, because that was the impression that America had over Barack Obama when we first were introduced to him. Like, there's no way.
He ain't real.
Yeah, there's no way. This guy
went to Harvard,
and he's married to a lawyer, and he's like the greatest guy. No way, right? And I guess that's a thing in our community where we doubt when we visualize the manifestation of greatness, we're always skeptical, right? So that question came to my mind while you were speaking. Like, I'm very impressed by you. I'm thankful to have gotten a chance to speak to you, but I was like, I gotta ask this guy, man, is he for real? There's no way. How did you become this? How did you become this so early? And but that's not the last question. Here's the last question. Here's the question I ask to typically close out my interviews, and then sometimes it doesn't close it out. Yeah. But the last question that I typically ask is, we talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Your childhood, your education, your career now, your family, your twin, your obstacles. What did we leave out?
Dang, you got my whole life story. So I'm like, what did we leave out?
We never talked about hobbies. What do you do for fun?
What did you do for fun? Yeah, what I do for fun. So I love hip hop dance. I was a part of a dance troupe in college. Yeah. So I started off, like every hip hop dancer, they probably started off on Michael Jackson. I remember my mom had a VHS and it had 7 videos on it. It had The Way You Make Me Feel, Beat It, Remember the Time, Rock With You, Black and White. Yeah, my brother just said it. I still remember the time. And I watched those videos. I'm like, Mom, can I watch the Michael Jackson video? And she would put in the VHS and I would just watch it over and over. I would skip Thriller because I was scared of the zombies because I was 4. That's how I started to dance. I started to imitate them and moonwalking around the house and just got into pop locking and hip hop. And then I started to do that in college. So that's definitely a hobby. There's a dance session, a jam session that happens in San Francisco where I live. That happens every Thursday. It's just randomly in the park that I go to. I love men's fashion. I've always, just like how that stuff shows up. And I also I'm a big anime fan. I love shout outs to all my Dragon Ball Z, my Yu Yu Hakusho's, my My Heroes, my Naruto fans, my Bleach fans. I'm a big anime head.
I'm with you there.
Hey, we have another man in the fold. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Black people love anime. It is not a secret anymore. And then I love movies and I love thoughtful conversations. I love asking the questions of why, where we're going, how we're going. So anything that's intellectually stimulating, a lot of times cinema does that. But that's some and I love video games too. I mean, what child of the 90s doesn't,
Okay. Me and my buddies, me and my frat brothers, we used to.
Wait, which one are you a part of?
Well, I'm not in the Divine Nine. I stayed away from those organizations that judge you from external reasons, right? Because I'm a big guy. I'm 300 pounds. I'm 6'5". I grew up in the martial arts, so I've always been an athlete. So of course, Omega Psi Phi, that's what I should have been. But something about that concept just didn't work for me. Right? I'm not a cookie cutter type dude. There's more to me than just what you see on the outside. So I stayed away from anything dealing with that. Yeah. I ended up joining a fraternity called Sigma Phi Rho. It's 42 years old. Founded at Staten Island, New York, at Wagner College. I'm actually the national president of my for my
Get out of
fraternity.
here.
Yeah, I'm national president. And these are all the things that guide my path. And like I said, I'm the journey you and your brother have taken or are taking. It's so different from mine in the sense of you figured it out. I remember turning 30 and realizing that nothing that I thought was right was right. Like I didn't know anything. I was 30 years old when I realized everything I thought to be right was wrong. Everything.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew I was a man. That's when I knew I grew up. But that was my epiphany, my revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm in a journey where I value all my values are different from pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
But all that being said, so now I'm really into community service and mentorship and letting the things like you have a lot of the answers, right? You have a lot of the answers already.
Mm-hmm.
The things a lot of people your age don't know yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a blessing that you can share that with them, it with them. But here's what I'm here for.
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be a moment,
mm-hmm.
and you can mark it down. Kevin Brown told you this. There's gonna be a moment where you and your brother are gonna be confronted with something that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
An obstacle that you could not have imagined. And just know when you run into that moment, know that if you stumble across my phone number, call me then. Right?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Because I'm great at that stuff.
Yeah,
right? I'm great at that stuff. I'm great at the stuff that's off script. I'm great at the stuff that no one could have imagined. I've been through a lot of things like that.
Right.
That, because in life, you can do everything right and everything still go wrong.
Sure
right?
can. Yeah.
And that throws a lot of people curveballs.
Yeah.
So, but I am so glad I met you and glad that I think Gary knew. Gary said something to me. We were in a meeting before this, and he said, Capel, he's and he was getting ready to explain. He said, "You'll find out." You'll find out. And he was right.
Wow.
He was right.
I'm honored, man.
Yeah, man. Because I can't say that I lost faith into our young ones, but there's a system. There's a system that distracts us. There's a system that sets us at odds with each other. There's a system that oppresses us, that marginalizes us. And it's institutionalized. And it's so institutionalized that when it's happening, we don't even see it. Right? Nope. A lot of us don't even see it. And
not even aware.
The system is designed for us not to see it. Right? So your faith is something that can help you cut through all that stuff. It gives you, it gives you this. It opens that extra eye, and you can see things that other people can't see. But just even with your question, the way you maneuver through the expectations within religion. In the news now, there's these stories going around. About young black men and searching for, where am I? Who are my people? Where am I from? And all that stuff. And it's a big debate.
Yeah.
But we're in search. We're wondering, like you said, how did your grandmother turn out Catholic or Christianity in our community? And what was our original religion? And what's our ancestry?
Yeah.
All that stuff was taken from us. And now we're in search of it.
Yeah.
And, I hope one of the things I'm gearing up for is to create is to tackle the conversation.
Right.
Because we're in a climate where we can't even have the conversation.
Yeah.
Without being condemned, without being demonized.
Yeah.
And these are conversations that we as a people have to have.
Right.
OGs like myself have to be able to have a conversation with a young G like yourself.
Yeah. 100%.
And feel safe. We have to be able to feel safe.
Yeah.
Or otherwise those words, those documents that were created to form this country mean nothing.
Right.
So that's the thing I'm leaning towards now. That's the battle I'm asking myself. Do I really want to get into that battle, or should I just just keep watching Naruto, right? The Naruto marathon.
Yeah. Oh man, you said a lot there. There's so much to pick. There's so much to pick apart, to unpack in what you said, because you're hinting to a lot of different things. I wish we had more time to talk about them, but we can do part 2.
Well, look, man, it was a pleasure, man. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Absolute pleasure.
It was an honor. You're very impressive,
Thank
brother. And continue your journey, man. I'm rooting for you. I'm excited for you. It was an honor to meet you.
Honor and pleasure, man. I'm blessed to be here.
Definitely. Last question. Did you know Brown is an Irish name?
You got to be kidding me.
A young lady, I interviewed someone within the City Tutors ecosystem.
Yeah.
Her last name is Brown.
Yeah.
And she told me this like 2 weeks ago.
Huh.
And I went, wait, what'd you say? Like, I'm interviewing her, and she threw the whole interview. She derailed the whole interview by telling me that. Wow. I was like, wait a minute, what'd you say? Yeah. But yeah, she told me Brown is an Irish name. And I'm like, I have to go back and trace, because I can trace my ancestry back to a great-great-grandfather who was a slave, who was an enslaved man.
Yeah.
And but I never checked the origin of the name or anything like that. But I heard that a couple of weeks ago, and it really blew my mind. So if you ever get an opportunity to do some,
I got to dig, man.
Ancestry.com.
African ancestry. I need to go. Yeah.